Hey everybody, my name is Brendan Noble and I'm a fantasy author. Welcome back to my Slavic Saturday series where we talk about Slavic history, mythology, and folklore related to my Slavic fantasy series called the Frostmarked Chronicles and the first book in the series, A Dagger in the Winds. This week we're going with a kind of festive theme for the fall harvest festivals because Thanksgiving was this Thursday in the United States. And so we're going to talk about particularly a Northern Slavic version of a pagan, but now modernized as well, fall harvest festival called Dożynki. Before I jump too far into Dożynki, though, I just wanted to remind you that I'm still looking for advanced readers for that first book in the series, A Dagger in the Winds. Advanced readers will receive a free copy of the book in exchange for a review either on Amazon or your favorite retailer. Check out the links down in the description below if you're interested in that. So, while Thanksgiving is celebrated in typically late November in the United States, Dożynki is a much earlier type of harvest holiday. It's celebrated usually at the end of August or mid-September, depending on the country or region. And still, these are similar kind of festivals. They're celebrations of harvest times and coming together with either a village or family and often having a huge feast associated with it. And Dożynki was celebrated around the areas of what we'd consider Northern Slavic territories today, such as Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, Belarus, Russia, Ukraine. I tried to look for other areas, festivals related to Southern Slavs, but couldn't necessarily find one, so this is just related to the Northern Slavs. And to the Northern Slavs, this harvest festival is important because the harvest was incredibly important for their survival throughout the winter and the next year. And the northern parts of Eastern Europe can be incredibly harsh winters, especially particularly in Russia, we know about. And this means that this harvest time, having a good harvest could mean you could have a very healthy and better winter, and if you have a bad one, it could lead to even starvation. So this honoring of this time and the importance of this time cannot be overstated, especially considering how agricultural based these societies were for the early Slavs and still really are in a lot of areas today. Unfortunately, Dożynki suffers from the same problem we get in a lot of Slavic mythology or folklore, and that's the fact that there really wasn't writing among the Slavic pagans, which means all that we have connected to it are traditions that are passed down or writing from Christians who came in afterwards. And because this festival kind of got Christianized afterwards, we have some remnants of what the original focus was, but not overall. That being said, still from some traditions that have been left over, as well as the understanding of different festivals we do know about from the Slavic pagans, we can start to build enough of a picture to understand a little bit about this holiday. And we can understand as well based on how the harvest took place among the early Slavs. It was a multi-month process, the harvest, that could involve both helping out on your own fields, but also helping out the neighbors in the village, depending on how far apart they were or how different sizes people's fields were. And this long process was very grueling, but they didn't have machinery back then, so they were using sickles or scythes to cut this fields and fields of often grain, and this was a multi-month effort. And so the culmination of this required a celebration because of how much toil they put in, both for being able to feed themselves, but also just celebration that the work was over. And part of the celebration was leaving the last sheath of grain in a field untouched until the celebration. Then on Dożynki, this last sheath would be cut down by the person who was considered the best reaper in the village, the best person who had cut the most grain and been very successful at this. And then people would then, after taking this last sheath that was decorated often with either berries or grains or various other things, it would then be wrapped into a wreath, decorated again, often with a rooster also in it, and then placed on top of the person's head who was the best reaper as kind of an honoring of the work that they did, and a fun part of the celebration for decorating different things from also parts of the harvest. After this festival, this wreath was then actually stored until the springtime for the sowing as kind of an honorary thing of the harvest as well. And still, while this person was wearing the wreath and everything, they would go through then the rituals and different celebrations related to prayers and things for the pagan gods. Not much of this has survived through the Christianization of the period, but because of our understanding of some other traditions, we can know that often there's potentially sharing of food offerings and things like that that would potentially be given to the gods, burned, or spread over graves or things as meant to be for ancestors and the gods in various ways. I can't say exactly how it'd be related to this, but in the context it would make sense. And at least in theory, this would make sense as well for thanking the gods for the harvest and the good harvest, especially if it was a good one. And as well, often probably giving the gods gifts that in hopes that the winter and that Marzana wouldn't bring a harsh winter for them as well, to make their suffering lighter over the next coming months in the harsher winter times. And as is common in festivals, after the rituals and praying and everything were over with, people got to eating and feasting and drinking and dancing and having the fun associated that we usually associate with festivals, both pagan and not, during the harvest time. And even today, this festival sometimes continues in certain regions. Certain towns will have festivals associated with it, where these big wreaths are associated, especially in Poland. I know I've seen some pictures of it. And even sometimes the Catholic Church will have the wreaths sometimes within different parishes and things. And showing again that this tradition has continued from the pagan times to the tradition today as just a celebration of the harvest time that is still relevant to the period of the year, because many of these countries are still agricultural based. And that's all I have for you today on the Slavic Saturday series. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe down below. I come with them every Saturday. And as always, if there's anything you would like to hear about on these videos, please remember to comment down below. I'm always looking for different excited things to talk about, because there's a lot related to Slavic mythology, and I'm going through them and having different priorities. So if there's one you would like to hear me talk about, please let me know. But I will see you guys all then next week.